30,000 people from around the world have gathered in New York City for the second Baha'i World Congress. Two years of preparation, along with the help of over 4,000 volunteers, has culminated in this historic event, which marks the centenary of the passing of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. This momentous occasion is being broadcast via satellite to more than 50 countries worldwide.
Could I see camera 3 online?
The Baha'is that are gathered here at the Jacob Javits Center in New York represent hundreds of countries, territories, islands, and tribes. These are the people of Baha.
We are the Aba, the Zulu, the Acholi, the Zapotec. We are from Angola, Algeria, Zambia. We are Colombians, Aitsaoun, French, Tangali, Finns, Ojibwa, Greek. We are the Aymara, the Mayans, the Dutch, the Yoruba, the Cree, the Inuit. We are from Tuvalu, Spain, Luxembourg, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Suriname.
We are the Poles, the Greenlanders, the Pakistanis, the Bank Islanders, the Maori, the Andangme. We are Mexican, Apache, Comorian, Swedes, Tigray. We are from Botswana, South Africa, Papua New Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Ireland, Uzbekistan, Canada.
This is the message of the Universal House of Justice to this wonderful Congress, that so wide a diversity of the human race as you represent has assembled at this commemorative event is in itself history-making, and is indeed an impressive demonstration of the potency and potential of the covenant as the instrument designed by the Lord of the age for the unification and pacification of the nations and peoples of the earth.
We are Germans, Sara, Guaymi, Somalis, Ekoi, Lebanese. We are the Babwa, the Babilis, the Tlingit, the people of Cameroon, the Oromo, the Haida, the Balante. We are Panamanians, Iroquois.
Now, therefore, I, David N. Dinkins, Mayor of the City of New York, in recognition of this important gathering in our city, do hereby proclaim Monday, November 23rd, 1992 in the City of New York as Baha'i World Congress Day.
We are the Latvians, the Lakota, the Arapaho, the Yami, the Yo, the Bribri. We are Australian, Torres Strait Islanders, Salish, Pygmies, Nepalese, Mauritanians. We are from the Bahamas, Scotland.
It is my privilege now to read to you a message to this Congress from the President of the United States of America. Baha'i teachings on religious tolerance, the unity of mankind, the elimination of prejudice, equality of the sexes, and universal peace embody principles that all people of goodwill admire and support. As you salute the life and writings of Baha'u'llah, I join you in praying that we may see the realization of these fundamental principles in every land. You have my best wishes for a meaningful celebration. George Bush.
They are your worldwide neighbors. They are your brothers and sisters. They are members of the Baha'i faith, an independent world religion with adherents in virtually every country. The Baha'i world is a cross-section of humanity. It comprises members living in more than 90,000 localities in 155 countries, men and women of various religious and ethnic origins. More than 2,100 ethnic groups and tribes are represented. Of these, 30,000 Baha'is have gathered in New York City to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the passing of Baha'u'llah, prophet founder of the Baha'i faith.
If you see a garden, there are different kinds of flowers, and this garden is beautiful because of the difference. And the same happened in the humankind.
It is a world religion, and this religion, in the 150 some odd years of its history, has now encompassed the world in a sense to where we can say it is the second most widespread religion in the world.
You know, one of the greatest things that has happened, I think, you know, in the last 150 years ago or so, is that a Persian man by the name of Baha'u'llah, who suffered tremendously, went through imprisonments and all kinds of unimaginable horrors, really, came to the world and gave many teachings.
The founder of the faith himself has, with his own pen, written volumes upon volumes of Holy Scripture. This is also a first time in religious history that it's ever happened. Baha'u'llah has revealed over 100 volumes of Baha'i Holy Scripture, and these scriptures are now translated into hundreds of languages throughout the world, and that is another wonderful thing about this faith, where you have access to the words of the prophet founder directly written by him.
Yeah, the principles of the oneness of God and the oneness of man, and also the independent investigation of the truth. Those were the main things that brought me to the faith, and I always strongly believed that there was one God and we all worship the same God.
That God, the unknowable essence, manifests himself through what Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, teaches are messengers or manifestations of the attributes and names and qualities of God, also known as prophets.
Fundamentally, it's one religion that has been revealed progressively from age to age, like school. Who's the teacher? God's the teacher through his revealers. And we are all, in the whole age of mankind, the students. And as we grow up, get just a little brighter and perhaps more sensitive, God adds to the lessons.
The Baha'i faith is the reason for living. For instance, if I do something, I ask myself, is this in accordance to the Baha'i teachings?
Baha'u'llah's teachings for me is something very special because it's given me a vision of how to have unity and diversity. And also, it's let me see and know what spiritual qualities are, which are hidden in each man.
The Baha'i faith, as Abdul Baha said, he gave the example that man and woman, it's like birds that needs 2 wings to fly. We should be like that. We should be same as the 2 wings to be together.
Prayer is the life of a person. If you want to be alive, you have to eat, drink, sleep.
Principle of oneness of humanity. Baha'u'llah brought this law to eliminate racism and prejudice against all colors and all nations. And this is one of the laws that will eliminate all this prejudice and racism.
He made that distinction that within a family, the resources are limited. And the only opportunity that arose was that out of the 2 children in the family, say a boy and a girl, one is to go to school and get educated. The female should be given the preference, for she is the first educator of mankind, the first educator of children.
Baha'is don't participate in partisan politics, because in partisan politics it only divides.
The Baha'i faith having this non-political character means that we can associate with anybody without that in the background, and that it is for everybody in the world.
And what Baha'u'llah says about independent investigation of truth is that we must all look into God's message for ourselves.
Well, you know, those principles are basically principles that everyone accepts in this day and age. Over 100 years ago, when Baha'u'llah first enunciated those principles to mankind, they were very radical.
The administrative order, of course, is the other side of the non-political character of the faith. And we have elected councils at the local, national, and international level. And the administration works so that we don't have any kind of campaigning. We elect by plurality vote people who we think are the best. So these councils that we elect at the local level, national level, and international level administer the affairs of the community. It's a consultative administration. They consult the community and they do what is best for the community.
Also, in order to support the administrative institutions, we have the institution of the learned that is made up of the hands of the cause of God, and also made up of the International Board of Counselors and the auxiliary boards who assist in the faith's work and help in the protection of this cause so that all can live in harmony and peace.
Since the United Nations has been established in 1944, the Baha'is have worked very closely with this body. The Baha'is are involved in all the social programs, the economic programs, as non-governmental status at the United Nations. Our most recent effort was at the Earth Summit in Brazil, in which the Baha'is were very involved in this issue.
And since we're trying to bring humanity back together where it is supposed to be, we're concentrating on the higher nature of man. But in order to understand unity, harmony, and love, you have to understand yourself.
If you want to have a clean spirit, you want to be close to God, you have to communicate in prayers. Baha'u'llah, the Bab Baha'u'llah Abdul Baha, they have given us many prayers in any social fields which you can pray.
The Baha'i faith, for me and for my people, means the unity of the human race.
Hemos aprendido a valorar
to value
nuestra propia
our own
cultura
culture
como el desarrollo propio de
and
nuestro
also
ser.
the development of our own
Y eso
being.
nos motiva
And this
a
gives
que
us
sigamos
motivation
los
to
ejemplos
continue
de
the
Abdul-Baha
examples of
y las
Abdul-Baha
enseñanzas
and
de
the teachings of Baha'u'llah.
que en esta vida
In
debemos
this life,
de
we
servir
must
a
serve
la humanidad
humanity
con amor
with
y
love
aprecio.
and with encouragement.
The Baha'i faith began in 1844 when a young Persian merchant, the Bab, which means gate, announced that a new era had dawned in mankind's history and that he would usher in this new era. And shortly thereafter, Baha'u'llah, whose name means the glory of God, announced that he was a promise of all ages. He was imprisoned, he was exiled for 40 years, and despite his sufferings in his exile, he was able to write over 100 books and give us the blueprint for world order.
I came from a Hindu background. I didn't understand what was religion until I became a Baha'i, how the religions are tied up. All the while people say you change religion. But being a Baha'i, I know religion progressed. So I sort of didn't change from my Hinduism. Only thing, I grew better.
So in fact, we felt from Los Angeles itself, or from the time we started from Malaysia, we had a feeling that as if we are going to pilgrimage. And after coming and seeing all of them here, we feel it's so beautiful, so lovely.
I would like to say Allah Akbar to all the friends in the world.
The first day of the World Congress was designed to generate reflection upon the meaning and purpose of the life of Baha'u'llah. The gathering opened with a reminder of much-loved friends who were unable to attend.
All of us gathering are poignantly aware that the achievements we celebrate have in considerable part been won by the sacrifices of our fellow believers in Iran. Sacrifices of well-being, of opportunity, of education, of possessions, of life itself. If there is one unwavering message that has come out of Iran over the past terrible 13 years, it is this: that we must not, for 1 minute, allow any grief to shadow the Baha'i world's joy over the breathtaking victories that these sacrifices have purchased. Today, this message of loving contentment with the will of God comes to us in the form of a magnificent gift of flowers sent to the Congress from the friends in the cradle of the faith. Mr. David Hoffman, former member of the Universal House of Justice, will now speak about Baha'u'llah, the promised one of all ages.
Our religion, dear friends, is a religion of superlatives. It is not just another revelation in the whole series of successive revelations educating mankind and taking him on to his ultimate destiny. It is the most great revelation at the most great time in history. Everything in the Baha'i revelation is of the most great. Mankind today is starving for spiritual food, is dying of thirst. In the innermost private life of every man, woman, and child on the planet, there is this inner frustration, this inner lack, this hunger, this yearning for something better than what the world is offering to it today or what they can discover in the world. When all the activities of mankind turn against him, his economics doesn't feed, clothe, and shelter him, his religion doesn't inspire him to kindliness and goodwill, his politics are unmentionable, his recreations are debased, nothing of the traditional and age-old activities of mankind, which at certain times in history, under the guidance of a manifestation of God, have risen to wonderful heights within the limitations of their ages. Nothing today gratifies this longing, this yearning in the individual human soul, frankly, for the love of God. Therefore, this is our opportunity, for we know the source of that divine love, Baha'u'llah, the Prince of Peace, the King of Love. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, was the cry of one of the great prophets of Israel. And the King of Glory shall come in. Now let us from this great Congress send a signal to the rest of humanity. Lift up your heads, O peoples of the world, and listen and hear the message of your Lord, your Creator, who loves you, who wants you to be happy and joyful and in a blissful condition of human felicity and brotherhood and peace on earth. This is the message of Baha'u'llah. Recall that wonderful song of the great Isaiah, anticipating the coming of the Great One in the great day of God, when all his bounties would be poured out upon mankind. He shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. And of his judgment and kingdom there shall be no end, and he shall reign forever and ever. That is Baha'u'llah, my friends. Baha'u'llah, 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 Ya Baha'ul Abha.
O Baha'u'llah, what hast thou done? Beneath the canopy of your presence, we here assembled acknowledge with our lives the truth you proclaimed. O Baha'u'llah, how long have we waited? O Baha'u'llah, by your grace we behold you, Prince of Peace, Ancient of Days, O promised one of all ages, O Baha'u'llah, what hast thou done?
As thousands of Baha'is converge on New York City for the World Congress, they discover a city that is a crossroads of the world, a pinnacle of modern civilization haunted by the ghosts of excess. Many of the conflicting qualities seen by Abdu'l-Baha in 1912 are still present, in even more extreme degrees. In many ways, New York is the world. Peoples from every nation make their homes here. And while these peoples and cultures often mingle, territories and neighborhoods still retain unique identities and invisible borders. New York is not so much a melting pot, but more a commonwealth of nations. Close your eyes and you can hear the city. New York speaks in many tongues, as it has many voices. The sounds of the city ebb and flow, rising up and calling out with joy and sadness, love and anger, hope and despair. The pulse of the city beats fast. It is everything one expects it to be, and more. From the yellow rivers of cabs flowing through the steel and glass canyons to the electric dazzle of Times Square, New York is a variety show. Here is a city where wealth is worship, power is king, materialism is a way of life, and poverty, which is all that is left for many, is sadly ignored. The conspicuous pursuit of expensive trifles and objects of status is in striking contrast to the vital human quest for simple survival on the same city streets. New York is a center of commerce and industry, the center of gravity for international finance. Billions of dollars move through the city's financial institutions every day, fueling governments and corporations alike. The incredible volume of activity often produces gridlock, and the city seems near to choking, a victim of its own growth and success. This is a city of beauty and dignity, though its splendor is stained by the corrosive effects of moral decadence. New York is a cultural mecca. The arts flourish. Museums reveal the treasures and achievements of mankind through the ages. Outside the museum walls, New York itself is a living museum, publicly exhibiting much that has gone wrong in a human society that lacks a spiritual core. New York is vibrant and alive. That life is also threatened by the disintegrating forces eating at the foundations of present-day society. It surrounds us with the darkness and despair of our present age, even as it holds out the promise of the global civilization foretold by Baha'u'llah.
Many Baha'is have come from far away to attend the Baha'i World Congress, but few, if any, have come as far as William Pandawa of Papua New Guinea. From his remote mountain village deep in the interior of this South Pacific country, William began his journey to New York in early October. He started by walking for one day to reach the nearest airstrip at this village of Aragip. Villagers who had been preparing for his departure gathered to give him a very special farewell. The Darga district of Papua New Guinea is almost entirely Baha'i. There are 40 local spiritual assemblies and more than 3,000 Baha'is. For them, William's trip to the Baha'i World Congress is the community's fulfillment of a deep-seated yearning to demonstrate the power of the Baha'i faith to unite the whole world.
Baha'u'llah said that the world is but one country, and We read this one, and now I really actually want to see it, actually happening. That is one of the aims of my vision of going and seeing different diverse of people from around the world coming together.
William and the people of Darga began to raise money for his trip more than 4 years ago. Ultimately, they would be assisted by a small community of Baha'is halfway around the world. But the $500 they raised among themselves represents an extreme sacrifice, given their subsistence way of life. Life in Darga is still very hard. There are no roads which would allow them to bring produce to market. It could be one of the least developed communities on Earth, being largely cut off from the rest of the world. These chiefs and nearby local spiritual assemblies are making their final donations for William's trip in amounts of $2 and $3 a time.
Since the Baha'i faith came into Darga, to my experience, I see, this feeling of togetherness among other, different religions is grown, is strengthened. And whereas before in the past, we feel that we were different tribes. We should mix together. But since the Baha'i faith came in, we mix around with other villages freely without thinking of these barriers of, say, clan groups, or we feel that they are different from us and all this. When we say we have Baha'is all over the world, they think that maybe it's true because they don't know how big the world is. But when we actually, people ask from here, going to these big places and seeing different, come and just tell the people within our own language how the Baha'i faith has grown, and we have friends all over the world.
As William arrived in New York, together with nearly 20 other Papua New Guinea nationals, their exhaustion from the 10,000-mile journey was overcome by the growing excitement of their undertaking. Upon arrival, William and his compatriots exchanged gifts with members of the Morristown, New Jersey Baha'i community.
When I left my country, I couldn't think of any better present than just bringing this traditional string bed here, made from my clan, and I would like to present it to the LSA of Morristown. Very much.
On the opening day of the Congress, William represented his people in the historic Procession of the Peoples of the World. In villages scattered across the entire face of the planet, there are now tens of thousands of other William Pandawas, world citizens all, brothers and sisters, partners in the great transformation of human society to one universal family.
The World Congress takes place at the midpoint of a holy year, in which the Baha'is of the world are commemorating the centenary of the passing of Baha'u'llah and the inauguration of his covenant. It is the second of two spectacular global convocations called to observe these anniversaries. On May 29th, some 3,000 Baha'is gathered in the Holy Land to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the ascension of Baha'u'llah. In his covenant and testament, Baha'u'llah made the unique provisions that have preserved the unity of the Baha'i faith, intact and undivided as it spread all over the world. A community encompassing all the diversity of the human race, eliminating the causes of religious strife and fanaticism, completely unified on a global scale, a movement unrivaled in its potentialities for the peaceful unification of all mankind. This unique and remarkable quality derives from the covenant of Baha'u'llah, the source of the ever-expanding unity of the Baha'i world. From the early days of this century, the city of New York played an important role in this process. It is known to Baha'is as the City of the Covenant.
Throughout the ages, the city of God is an expression that has been used to describe the guidance that has come to mankind from the heaven of divine will to refresh and transform the earth of human understanding. Through divine guidance, social consciousness has evolved and civilization has advanced. Baha'is believe that a fresh outpouring of God's grace has been given to the world through the revelation of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith. Early in this century, his son and appointed successor traveled to North America to proclaim the covenant of Baha'u'llah to the peoples of the West. Viewed with the eyes of the Spirit, Abdul-Baha may be seen in New York inviting mankind to make its home in the city of the covenant of Baha'u'llah. In his words, the New Jerusalem is none other than divine civilization. It is now ready. Humanity will be brought together as one. When Abdul-Baha arrived in 1912, New York was fast becoming a symbol of the modern world. To him, its skyscrapers expressed an aspiration for progress that was typical of the technological age that was coming into being. Truly, it is a wonderful city, he said. New York has made such progress in material civilization. I hope that it may also advance spiritually in the kingdom and covenant of God. I have come for this. The city that welcomed Abdul-Baha was on the crest of a wave of optimism about the future. In the busy streets, the master saw a thriving society where everyone hurried to work. New York is a beehive, he said. At that time, 1,000 immigrants a day were streaming through the government reception center on Ellis Island. Most were spreading out across the continent to the mills and factories of the American heartland. Many, however, settled in Manhattan's Lower East Side, making it one of the most densely populated areas on Earth. To the companions of Abdul-Baha, it must have seemed as if representatives of all humanity were being drawn together in New York to hear his message. Abdul-Baha was attracted by America's interest in the cause of world peace. He had come to New York to speak at the Lake Mohonk Conference on International Arbitration. He believed that the most momentous question of the day was international peace, that a power was needed to prevent war and to proclaim the oneness of humanity. As the master arrived, the country was preparing for a federal election. Social reform was becoming a political issue of national dimensions. Across the country, wherever newspapers could reach, reform measures were being discussed. Abdul-Baha was a guest speaker at the 4th annual conference of the NAACP, where he shared the platform with Jane Addams, founder of Hull House in Chicago. As he crossed the continent, the master met with leaders of thought who were actively concerned with the needs of the time. Early, confidence ran high that remedies for the ills of humankind could be found by advancing science and technology. In Abdu'l-Baha's view, what was needed to resolve the problems of an emerging global society was the union of scientific and moral development, of material and spiritual civilization. Spiritual consciousness is the generating force of human society, he said. Throughout his visit, Abdu'l-Baha addressed issues familiar to us as the major problems of this century. Since 1912, they have expanded in range and complexity. And demand for social action has become a way of life in our time. Abdu'l-Baha put the racist attitudes he found rooted in American culture in a global perspective. He warned that until those prejudices are entirely removed from the people of the world, humanity will not find rest. He saw problems like the extremes of wealth and poverty created by industrial society in an international context. The solution did not lie in the conflict of capital and labor. Fundamentally, the disease afflicting the body politic is lack of love and altruism. Abdu'l-Baha favored the empowerment of women through greater opportunity for education. Social and political progress will not be possible, he said, until man and woman recognize and realize equality. He called on the nations of the world to create an international tribunal to establish the cause of universal peace, because the spirit of the age demands peace. No power on earth can stand before it, he asserted. In 1912, Abdu'l-Baha had no illusions, however, about the impending crises facing humanity. He warned, "The earth is loaded with explosives and deadly instruments. Before long, these weapons of hell shall wreck the edifice of mankind." All the bloodshed of the past has been induced through religious or racial prejudice, or political or patriotic bias. After World War I, he wrote, "Movements newly born and worldwide in their range will exert their utmost for the advancement of their designs." Many in 1912 saw that war on the continent was inevitable. Few, however, realized the vital importance of Abdu'l-Baha's message. It was only in the aftermath of World War I, the unprecedented dislocation of the peoples of Europe, together with worldwide economic depression, that the complacency of the Western world was shaken. Nevertheless, when the League of Nations was established, Abdu'l-Baha praised this faltering effort at international agreement as marking the dawn of the most great peace promised by Baha'u'llah. Commemorating his proclamation of the Covenant of Baha'u'llah in 1912, Abdu'l-Baha called New York the City of the Covenant. To the little band of his followers in America, he explained the truth of his mission. Through the Covenant of Baha'u'llah, a way has been opened for a new relationship between God and humankind in this age. The divine teachings must be sought, he said, for they are the remedies for the ills of mankind. The power of the covenant is the axis of the oneness of the world of humanity. Abdu'l-Baha brought the community together in a feast of unity. He called on the Baha'is to promote the cause of unity among the nations of the world. "I desire to make manifest among the friends in America a new light, that they may become a new people, that a new foundation may be laid and complete harmony be realized. For the foundation of Baha'u'llah is love." Since Abdu'l-Baha's visit, a dual process that will ultimately bring about human accord has steadily gained momentum. After a Second World War, the nations have taken another step in the political realm toward unifying the planet. On the New York skyline, the United Nations building has joined the Statue of Liberty as an international symbol of mankind's aspiration toward a new world based on peace and justice. At the same time, through the guidance of the Baha'i teachings, the Baha'is have brought into existence a global community, representative of the diversity of humankind and established in the most remote reaches of the earth. Its affairs are directed by an internationally elected body as conceived in the writings of Baha'u'llah and called the Universal House of Justice. As the revelation of God to our age transforms human consciousness, the political unification of our planet will be seen as a prelude to the fulfillment spoken of 100 years ago by Baha'u'llah. These fruitless strifes, these ruinous wars shall pass away, and the most great peace shall come.
On the second day, the World Congress turned its attention to Abdul-Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, his appointed successor, exemplar of his teachings, center of his covenant, a station that is unique in all religious history.
Abdul-Baha was a unique individual. He was the son of Baha'u'llah, but he was much more than that. From his very childhood, he showed qualities most unusual in human beings. He displayed a perfection of person and character that is absolutely mind-boggling. long before Baha'u'llah appointed him his successor. He was Baha'u'llah's secretary, he was his shield, he was his deputy. He frequently represented Baha'u'llah with government authorities. He took care of his father's comfort, whatever comfort could be provided to Baha'u'llah in conditions of jail and exile. He impressed everyone who met him, even enemies, with his gentleness, his kindness, his wisdom. And among the Baha'is, he is counted as one of the central figures of this faith.
Let us now go back to 1912, to the city of the Covenant, and let us meet Juliet Thompson.
When I was 10 years old, I began to dream of someday painting a portrait of Jesus Christ. I think I always knew I would paint, even before that time. But when I was 10, I remember we were living with my grandparents. My father had just died, and my mother had no money. It was then that this very presumptuous idea took hold of me. I became determined to paint Jesus. I even prayed that I might. Oh, God, I prayed. You know Christ didn't look the way all the pictures of him look. Please let me paint him when I grow up as the King of men. And I never lost hope of this. All through art school, until I met the master. When I saw Abdu'l-Baha, then I knew no one could paint the Christ. It was on pilgrimage in Akka when I began my diary. Oh, Akka, white-walled city by the sea where I dedicated my heart to Abdu'l-Baha. But like my diary, my dedication was also a lifelong effort. When you return to America, Juliet, the master said, I want you to do your best to bring about unity. You're going back to New York to serve me. But how could I unify the Friends when my own heart was divided? You see, I was in love with the Reverend Dr. Percy Grant. His Church of the Ascension was just a half block from my studio. For years I would go there to hear him preach. Admiration soon became something more. I fell in love. I've only had one strong love in my life, and that was Percy, the charismatic rector who not only championed social justice, but preached world brotherhood as well. What better partner could be found for me? But in Akka, Abdu'l-Baha said I might have to break with Percy. Either you must marry him, he said, or separate yourself from him. Cut yourself entirely from him. Why was this asked of me? Maybe I was more anxious to lead Percy Grant to the kingdom than to go there myself. Maybe I counted on romantic union with Percy more than eternal union with God. After all, I did miss spending an extra day with Abdu'l-Baha because of my haste to get back to New York. And to Percy, oh, the master knew my heart so well. Can you transfer this love to God, he asked. That was the question, could I? There are degrees of love, the master said. And then he explained he carried a measuring rod in his hand by which he measured the love of the Friends. And that rod was obedience. All that winter I refused to see Percy. My heart was still attached to him, but I felt somehow in refusing to see him, I was at least in part obeying the master. Then a note arrived from Percy. It was an invitation. He wanted Abdu'l-Baha's first public address in New York to be at the church where he himself was minister. If half-hearted obedience brings forth such fruit, I thought, what will full obedience bring forth? Oh, on that day at the Church of the Ascension, Percy arranged everything with the touch of an artist, everything choreographed so perfectly. First the procession with flowers and music. He read a prophecy from the Old Testament pointing directly to the promised day, to Baha'u'llah. Then on cue, the choir burst into a chorus of Jesus Lives Again, and Percy introduced the Master. I sat there, happier it seemed to me than I had been in my entire life. I was in the presence of my Lord, and the one I loved best in all this human world had at last recognized him. Maybe all my suffering had been for this reconciliation. For what else could that exquisite service have meant, with its theme of resurrection stressed throughout, so bold and daring a proclamation in the very church itself? It never occurred to me to think it might really have meant something else. After the service, I waited joyously in the rectory for Percy. At last he rushed in, his cheeks flushed. "My darling," he said, "my darling." "You made everything so beautiful," I told him. "I can't find the right words to thank you." But then something in his look, something false, awakened me. "Julie," he said, "my darling, I did it all for you." And then I realized he had staged a performance. He had used the Master as a pawn to woo me, manipulating the cause for his own purposes. I saw then, with complete clarity, how right Abdu'l-Baha had been. Horrified, sick at heart, I turned away. Thank God I had obeyed.
Abdu'l-Baha.
The covenant actually is a rather simple concept. It is an agreement, a treaty that a prophet of God concludes with his followers. He makes to them certain promises and in return expects them to act in certain ways and follow his commandments. In this specific case, in the Baha'i case, the covenant of Baha'u'llah is about authority and interpretation within the Baha'i community. Authority has always been a problem with religions after the passing of the founder. In Christianity, there was no definitely designated successor. The Roman Catholic Church accepts St. Peter as its leader on the basis of a brief and vague statement. In Islam, of course, there was a dispute between factions immediately upon the passing of Muhammad as to who was going to be the leader of the community. And this led to factionalism, to sectarianism, to the breakup of community, even to religious wars. Baha'u'llah wanted to prevent such an occurrence, and therefore he entered into a covenant with his followers to the effect that his eldest son, Abdul Baha, would be the leader appointed by Baha'u'llah himself, a leader who would exercise authority over the community of the faithful and who would have the unique right to interpret the teachings of his father. That, in essence, is the meaning of the covenant.
Participants of the Baha'i World Congress were invited to a special tribute created to pay homage to the center of Baha'u'llah's covenant, his son and appointed successor, Abdul Baha. A magnificent theme pavilion was constructed, filling no less than 5 complete ballrooms at the New York Hilton Hotel. It was designed to give participants a time capsule look back to Abdul Baha's unparalleled trip to the United States in 1912. Each of the 5 rooms contained unique images and events of that historic visit. It was accordingly titled Abdul Baha, His Mission to America. Baha'is entered the pavilion in groups of 50 and were encouraged to move freely throughout the space, creating their own experience of Abdul Baha's mission to America.
The traveling was difficult, but Abdul Baha traveled here just to show to people of the West that this is the unity that comes from the East, but will get around the world.
I feel that he's our great teacher, and that he is the human element of our faith, and that he is, well, it's in the writings that he is the exemplar. But to me, I guess the first thing is father, that he is the spiritual father.
Abdul Baha is the role model for all Baha'is. Just like Baha'u'llah is the messenger of God. But, you know, he's the messenger of God. He's so high. You just cannot, it's very hard to visualize Baha'u'llah. Whereas Abdul Baha, he's the mystery of God. He's much closer to us. He's like a human being, but he's perfect.
After the exposition, my view of Abdul Baha changed a great deal. Now I see he is the perfect example for us to follow, to live Baha'u'llah's teachings.
When I walked into the pavilion and looked at all the black and white photographs, it really struck me that the Baha'i faith is such a far-sighted religion that in 1912, Abdul Baha spoke about peace in America, and it's only now in 1992 that people are coming round to it, and that I thought was incredible.
In addition, the exhibit was open to a group of over 100 dignitaries, civic and religious leaders from the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic faiths, as well as reporters from around the world. These honored guests were given a guided tour by the hand of the cause of God, Amatul Baha Ruhiyya Khanum. Her personal commentary helped give perspective to the World Congress and Abdul Baha's visit to the city of New York. In the final room, a recording of the voice of Abdul Baha could be heard chanting a prayer, while the Master's fez was displayed with the utmost dignity and honor.
Behold a candle, how it gives its light. It weeps its life away, drop by drop, to give its flame. You must die to the world, and so be born again, and enter to the kingdom of heaven. Look at me, follow me, be as I am. Abdul Baha, Abdul Baha. You are the angels, if your feet be firm, be steadfast as a rock, that no earthly storm can move. And as you have faith, so shall your powers be, and know that till the end I'm always with you. Look at me, follow me, be as I love mankind, follow me, be as I am. Abdul Baha, Abdul Baha. And how I long to travel the world in utmost poverty, and cry out, Ya Baha, God willing, you may do this for me. Teach mankind, follow me, be as I am.
addition to the many featured presentations and events, a host of other activities also has captured the imagination of the Baha'is and other observers at the Congress. Tucked into one side of impressive Jacob Javits Center, the Hall of Banners displays a colorful and poignant array of 3-meter square flags sent to the Congress from all corners of the globe. As the thousands of Baha'is filed into the main hall for each of the Congress sessions, they passed these touching expressions of love and unity.
これは建設的な、見本はいかに私たちがバハウラの制約に忠実であるということを明かすと思います。
An event of such truly international undertaking requires expert translation services. Each of the Congress main sessions was offered in 4 languages. In addition to English, participants could receive simultaneous translation in French, Spanish, Japanese, and Persian.
世界で一番大きいバハイ共同体を持っております。
Film festivals, running continuously throughout the Congress in numerous locations, offered scores of films and documentaries. Several new productions received world premieres at the event. For many Baha'is, the opportunity to meet people was a major activity of the Congress. Many specially assigned gathering places made it easy for old friends and new acquaintances to visit each other. For those who had been separated by thousands of miles and perhaps many years, this became a favorite activity. Farabor Sahba, much acclaimed architect of the Baha'i House of Worship in India and project manager for the Mount Carmel projects, gave an illuminating presentation on the progress of work being undertaken on the Mountain of the Lord in Haifa. Congress attendees were shown computer-generated images to gain a better understanding of the demanding mountainside construction underway, as well as images of the recent progress of the construction. At the request of the Universal House of Justice, a major international display of Baha'i literature was prepared. In one wide-ranging display, visitors were able to view the tremendous growth of Baha'i publishing activity that has taken place in recent years. In languages from Guayamí to Swahili, the books of the Baha'i world were there.
There is a special area for photographers.
The Global Media Task Force has been carefully planning for more than a year to ensure that the world's media came, witnessed, and reported the momentous events of the Second Baha'i World Congress. Representatives of the press corps of Mongolia, Great Britain, Brazil, Mexico, Russia, Peru, Korea, the United States, and many others were in attendance. This photograph of 2 representatives from Papua New Guinea appeared in the New York Times on day 2 of the Congress.
I think the Baha'i World Congress is particularly interesting for the press because it has such a wide variety and diversity of people. I don't know if there's any other event in the world where you have that broad sweep of different nations, different cultures, different nationalities, different religious backgrounds coming together. And I think that in itself is a news story. It's a story which is unusual in the world. News tends to focus on violence and aggression and war, and here is a real gathering of the nations of the world coming together to talk about issues which matter. Yesterday I was thinking of the phrase, all the world's a stage. Well, yesterday we saw all the world's on stage, and I think this is something which will be reverberating throughout the whole planet.
It may be years before the full media impact of this truly global 4-day event can be assessed. This monumental event has been fueled by the tireless services of thousands of individuals. Volunteers from around the world contributed their time and expertise in many areas, from logistics and security to information, ushering, even preparing this satellite broadcast. These volunteers often sacrifice their opportunities to attend Congress sessions so the world would have a better chance to hear the message of this soul-stirring event. In the evenings, Congress participants were treated to a variety of artistic performances, more than 100 acts from around the world.
making his will made known. Time for pieces now. Leaders at the table talking about an end to war. But we need more than just more. We gotta open up the door, oh, and let a little sunlight shine on each and every face. And in the light of morning, let them bless the human race, saying we are one family. We are too close not to let it be. We are sisters and brothers, a coat of many colors, you and me. Feel the expectation, all the world around. Everyone is waiting to hear the joyful sound. Oh, let them hear the nation singing, singing out in harmony. There's a new world in the making. Won't you sing along with me? We are one family. We are too close not to let it be. We are sisters and brothers, a coat of many colors, you and me. Shout from the mountaintop, sailing on the breeze. The only way we're gonna have peace is when we come to see we are one family. We are too close not to let it be. We are sisters and brothers, a coat of many colors. We are one family. We are too close not to let it be. We are sisters and brothers, a coat of many colors, you and me. You and me. We are one family.
こんにちは。私は日本からインドに今行っています。Nous sommes tous à la Réunion et nous sommes tous une grande famille.
Veramente qui c'è un insieme di razze ed è bellissimo. È un'occasione, un evento veramente speciale. E vi salutiamo tutti da New York.
Asang banyak, ukonsuntumi kolo, ayole yale Baha'u'llah.
I'd like to, on behalf of the youth and at this Congress, greet all the people around the world, and especially those Baha'is that are in Tuvalu, who could not make it here. I don't think anyone from Tuvalu could make it here, but believe me, those of us who are here have remembered you and have you in our thoughts and in our prayers, and you are definitely here in spirit.
Hola, queremos dar un saludo de parte de todos los amigos y jóvenes venezolanos, a toda la gente del mundo y a todos los jóvenes.
We have 5,000 youth here from 160 countries.
And I've never seen so many excited youth in my life. Out of 30,000 people, these 5,000 youth are carrying the excitement at a level that you wouldn't believe.
Youth can move the world, and the Baha'i youth sure believe that they have themselves the power. In fact, all youth have the power when infused with the correct spirit and the teachings of God Almighty to bring about a new world civilization.
Being a Baha'i youth now, it's scary, it's exciting, because as Baha'i youth now, we're going to be the last ones who are going to be able to tell someone for the first time about the Baha'i faith.
Being a Baha'i youth and coming to the Baha'i World Congress, I feel some impulse, I feel some good in me. Seeing all the youths of the world holding hands together and celebrating the oneness of humanity, celebrating the one universal family, the one Baha'i family. I think this is very, 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 very important to me. And this has really affected me. It has entered right inside my heart.
The way I feel about the Congress is that, especially for the youth, it is vital for us to take seriously our covenant.
Here, everybody's in love with Baha'u'llah and love with God. We're all joined as one seed. That's the main thing, is that's weird that everybody has one frame of thought. Well, not one frame of thought, actually, but it's like everybody's on the same positive level. I got here, and the first day I was here, all these people were here from different countries, different states, and automatically we had something in common. That was being that we were all Baha'is. That was automatically we had something to talk about. That was Baha'u'llah and the covenant.
It just made me realize that there are all these people all working for the same thing, and I'm not alone. And like I see all the youth here doing the same thing that I'm trying to do, and it just like gives me a big boost.
When I leave, I know that everyone is going to know about the Baha'i faith. And I'm not going to be able to go back and joke around and just be, you know, a slack Baha'i, just a lip Baha'i, and just talk it. I have to act it now. To me, when I say act it, I have to be able to exemplify every day the virtues of Baha'u'llah, the principles that he has given me. I have to be able to go and actually, truly, genuinely show to my sisters and brothers that I believe in the elimination of prejudices, that I don't believe in discriminating. I have to act it now. I can't just say it.
Youth have been heroic in the faith, and they are heroic in the faith. The Bab himself, the herald of the faith, was young, a youth, and was martyred for what he taught. So when one looks at the whole history of the Baha'i faith, one sees really a history of youth. Youth not just chronologically, but certainly youth in spirit.
Who brought this message of love to mankind? Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah. Who said that justice is best in his sight? Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah. Baha'u'llah came for all mankind. He brought us love and peace of mind. He says man should live as one. There is no place for us to run. Baha'u'llah came for all mankind. He brought us love and peace of mind. He says man should live as one. There is no place for us to run. もてまたおてぽどんな手なきてもえディアホイホマイクエヘイカルもてまたおてぽヘイカルもてまたおてぽディアナアハきてもえディアホイホマイクエヘイカルもてまたおてぽヘイカルもてまたおてぽ来てこれくえてカルおてぽパウリあなたく笑えパウリあなたく笑え
Rejoice, the Guayami people first came in touch with the Baha'i faith, they asked the Baha'is to help them restore their culture. Mr. Juan Bejarano is here to share his story with us.
Abdul Baha, el exponente más perfecto de la revelación de Baha'u'lláh, dijo lo siguiente.
Abdul Baha, the most perfect exponent of the Baha'i revelation, said the following.
Si estos nativos llegan a recibir una educación y son guiados correctamente, no cabe duda que iluminará a todo el mundo entero.
If these native peoples receive education and are guided properly, there is no doubt that through the teachings, the divine teachings, they will become so enlightened that they will illumine the world.
Muy buenos días, queridos hermanas y hermanos Baha'is. Alawat Ha. Es un privilegio para el pueblo guaymí de recibir el bello mensaje de Baha'u'lláh, y en estos momentos tomo esta oportunidad para dirigirme a ustedes.
It is a privilege for the Guaymi people to receive the beautiful message of Baha'u'lláh. And at these moments, I'm happy to take this time to speak with you.
Lo más importante que quiero decirle es que el pueblo guaymí ha abrazado la causa de Baha'u'lláh y quiere ser obediente a sus enseñanzas.
The most important thing I have to tell you is that the Guaymi people have accepted the cause of Baha'u'lláh and are trying to be faithful to his teachings.
Bajo la guía de ellas se están estableciendo proyectos de desarrollo socioeconómico, como son la Radio Baha'i, el Centro Cultural Guaymí y Escuela para Educación de Niños.
Under their guidance, we are establishing social economic development projects such as Radio Baha'i, the Guaymi Cultural Center, and the children's schools.
Bajo estas instituciones se desarrollan programas de profundización, de alfabetización, conferencias de mujeres, consejos nativos, se desarrollan campañas de enseñanzas y otros.
Under the institutions mentioned, we're developing literacy programs, women's conferences, native councils, children's education, teaching projects, and others.
Por medio de estos programas, hemos estado logrando un efecto transformador en el área para ayudar a nivelar la calidad de vida espiritual del pueblo guaymí.
And through these programs, we're having a transforming effect to help balance the spiritual life of the Guaymi people.
Estos ejemplos positivos demuestran que poco a poco estamos entendiendo el convenio de Baha'u'lláh y tratando de servirla.
These positive examples demonstrate that little by little we're coming to understand the covenant of Baha'u'lláh and trying to serve him.
¿Qué más queda a este humilde pueblo de ser el instrumento de Baha'u'lláh?
What else can this humble people do but be the instrument of Baha'u'lláh?
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Friends, let us now welcome the beloved hand of the cause of God, whose unique and shining example has illumined the soul and the mind of generations of Baha'is, whose precious presence has been and is the source of inspiration, courage, and assurance for all of us. Please, friends, welcome with joy and gratitude the hand of the cause of God, Amatul Baha Ruhi Khanum.
Friend, it's very wonderful to have the privilege of being present on this very historic occasion. And I sometimes have been thinking during the last few days that maybe I'm the only genuine bona fide New Yorker present. I'm quite serious. I was born on Fifth Avenue. Not on the street, but in the Flower Hospital. And I suppose my great-great-great-grandfather was practicing as an MD and a homeopathic physician in 1831. So probably he went back to the beginning of the century. So you see, I have quite a relationship with this city. And it's not only the city of the covenant, which we are commemorating in the beloved Master's visit here, but it's a very historic city. It's a very interesting and important city. And I think that's why the Master showered so much love and so much attention on it. Surely the potentiality, at least I suppose in an abstract sense, of teaching the cause in New York would be almost the equivalent of teaching representatives of every race and nation in the world. It's a giant metropolis. It has white people, it has black people, it has Hispano-Moresque people, I'm not sure the end of that's correct, and it has people from China and Japan. In other words, it's a great, great boiling pot of the human race. It's a very great city. And I think that the potentialities that are going to be released by this wonderful conference in this city of the covenant are going to be felt throughout the Baha'i world. And I think that I would like to say to all of you, you sit in the audience. I've been sitting in it too. You don't come up here and give talks. You sing, some of you, you perform, some of you, and the rest of us are spectators. But I wonder how many of you realize that you can go out from this hall, whoever you are, whatever age, whatever background, however rich or poor or old or young, and be an emissary of the spirit of Baha'u'llah to the world. Abdu'l-Baha once said, as I remember, greet people with a smiling face. Well, you can't go around grinning like an idiot at everybody. That's silly. But at least you can show some amiability You know, you don't have to go around like that. You can go around with a little bit more outgoing and happy reaction for other people to look at. And I think that one of the things that we can do when we go out here is to realize that we have been dynamized by the spirit of Baha'u'llah and Abdul-Baha. We have been filled with this great conference with the wonderful spirit of our faith, that we have the House of Justice behind us, that they called for this conference, that this is the Baha'i World Conference commemorating the 100th anniversary of the passing of Baha'u'llah, and that little and insignificant, whether we're well or whether we're sick, whether we're educated or whether we're ignorant, it doesn't make any difference. We can go out and share the joy and the light in the teachings of Baha'u'llah. I don't know how people are teaching the faith these days, because my life is so peculiar. When I'm at home in Haifa, I have pleasure of meeting the pilgrims. I'm trying to write a book at the moment, and I travel, as you know, a great deal. And perhaps you'd like to know why I travel so much. One day in our room, our apartment in Haifa, the guardian was just going through the room, and he stopped and he looked at me, and without any preamble, he said, "What will become of you when I die?" And I was so upset, and I wept and I carried on, and I said, "I won't live in this world without you, and don't say such terrible things," and so on. And it was a terrible, terrible thing for me. And he paid no attention. He looked very thoughtful, and he said, well, he did often pay attention when I was upset. He didn't at that moment. And he looked at me thoughtfully, and he said, well, I suppose you will travel and encourage the Baha'is. And that's the only single thing that the guardian of the cause ever said to me about my own future in life, because I was 20 years younger than he was. And he died altogether too young. I mean, it was ridiculous for the guardian of the Baha'i faith to die at 60. He didn't have to die that young. But he died because he just got worn out. He had so much to endure. He had so many trials, so many problems, such a burden on his shoulders that it just literally wore his heart out. You know, this is not the talk I planned to give you, but perhaps it's the talk you'd like to hear. You know, every great religion in the world has suffered from schism when the founder of that religion passed away, every one of them. But the Baha'i faith has never suffered any schism at all, because of the covenant and how clear it was, how emphatically the whole thing was presented to mankind through Baha'u'llah, through Abdul-Baha, through Shoghi Effendi. And what the guardian had built up was sufficiently strong that we poor hands of the cause, there are 3 of us here, dying species at the moment, and there's, I say, my colleague, Mr. Puritan, who's been from the very passing of the guardian in Haifa, and Dr. Baha'i, who many times came and acted as a substitute custodian. We know what we went through, and we know the miracle of the fact that nothing ever happened to the cause. It couldn't be divided. What had happened in previous religions could not happen in this religion. What's more, is never going to happen in this religion. we have this divine institution of the Universal House of Justice established by Baha'u'llah. And by the miraculous protection of God, the covenant, the foundation laid by Shoghi Effendi, in 1963 we had the election of the first Universal House of Justice, and it has been running the Baha'i faith ever since. And those of us, even the very new Baha'is, who see all kinds of wonders before their eyes. Many of you new Baha'is who are here in this hall, you understand what a wonderful occasion this is. You're impressed. But then how much more the old Baha'is like me and my generation that see these miracles before our eyes, you see. All this is the power of the covenant. This is the firm foundation laid in this dispensation, and this is under the guidance of the Universal House of Justice. And I think that we have to realize that when we leave here, we're going to leave, hopefully, not the kind of people that we were when we came in. My mother was one of the first disciples of Abdu'l-Baha, and she describes in her early pilgrimage that they had the blessing of being with the Master in the prison city of Akka, and what it meant. We won't go into that because there's a great outpouring of love and of kindness, of information and so on, inspiration. And she says we went forth heartbroken that we were leaving his presence, but never, never to be the same kind of people again. And I think that we have to realize that we're going to go out of this hall and we're not going to be the same kind of people that we were when we came in it. We're not. Because we've received the outpourings of Baha'u'llah, because we've felt our tremendous strength of oneness as Baha'is, because we know we have a canopy over our heads protecting us, the Universal House of Justice, because we have plans, because we're going to have new plans, because we're going to have new victories all over the world. And I think that what could be more befitting as a tribute to the covenant of Abdu'l-Baha and the city of the covenant, where the Master blessed it and called it the city of the covenant, what could be more important than the spirit that we are going to take away when we leave here? And we're going to take it to the far corners of the earth.
consider in New York City the program of the fourth and final day of the historic Second Baha'i World Congress.
О Господи благой, Ты произвел все человечество от одного корня, определил всем принадлежать к единой семье. В присутствии Твоем святом все слуги Твои есть. Все человечество приютил Ты под одним шатром у стола даров Твоих. Всех озарил светом Своей любви и погрузил в океан милосердия Твоего. О Господи благой, объедини всех, и да достигнут согласия все религии, и объединятся все народы в один народ, дабы считать им друг друга членами одной семьи и целую землю единым домом всех. О Господи, возвысь стяг единства народов, соедини все сердца воедино. Ты милостив и всемогущ. Ты прощаешь грехи и снисходителен к несовершенствам человека. Воистину, Ты наш единосущный властитель, помощник наш и наш Господь.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Baha'i Satellite Network and the live telecast of the fourth day proceedings of the Baha'i World Congress in the Jacob Javits Center in New York City. Around the world, at this very moment, Baha'i audiences on every continent are sharing this historic occasion with us. Additionally, as a result of the enormous interest by television networks around the world, millions of viewers are also watching this program. Through a constellation of communication satellites placed some 22,000 miles in space, we are joined together in celebration of Baha'u'llah's call for the unity of mankind and to emblazon his name across the planet. As a demonstration of the unifying power of the revelation of Baha'u'llah, let us briefly exchange greetings with some of our brothers and sisters gathered at conferences around the world. Apia, Western Samoa, are you there?
We are here. Greetings from His Highness Malitor Tanwafili II, Head of State of the Government of Western Samoa, to the Baha'i World. Baha'i World Congress, New York, November 1992. From the depths of my heart, I wish to convey my warmest greetings to the Universal House of Justice and the Baha'i world. As head of state of this country, I warmly express that in marking the centenary of the inauguration of the covenant, this is an immense significance to the worldwide Baha'i community. And in view of the current state of human affairs, I pray that more and more leaders will listen to the call of Baha'u'llah in order that world peace be established, which has been the purpose of all religions of the past. This holy year is an inspiring reminder of the sacredness of the manifestation of God. We have been endowed with the capacity to recognize the sacred in its universality, in its individual expressions in the world of being and nature, and in the hearts of men. My greetings to all the Baha'is of the world who, in the commemoration of this special occasion, signify the power of the covenant of Baha'u'llah, and for the world to know and recognize God's greatness and uniqueness as our Creator and to apprehend His holy word. Soifua Malitor Tanumafili II, His Highness the Head of State of the Independent State of Western Samoa. Greetings from the conference of the satellite telecast in Apia, Western Samoa. Our warmest Baha'i greetings from the islands of Samoa, from the people and all the Baha'is who have gathered in Apia at this very moment to be part of a historic occasion symbolizing the unity of the world at large. As Baha'u'llah's name is emblazoned across the whole planet through electromagnetic waves, heralding his redeeming message of unity to mankind. Present here today are believers not only from Western and American Samoa, but also friends from as far as Italy, Papua New Guinea, Tuvalu, Hawaii, New Zealand, Cook Islands, as well as the Samoan heroes who have returned from the Ocean of Light teaching campaign in Tuvalu. This telecast conference is being held at the Baha'i premises at Lelata, a few miles away from where the Mother Temple of the Pacific is located. Those gathered send their loving greetings, and this quotation from the promised of all ages, Baha'u'llah. The lamp of the covenant is the light of the world, and the words traced by the pen of the Most High a limitless ocean. Allah Pa.
Thank you very much, Samoa. And now we go to South America. Buenos Aires, Argentina, welcome to our Cycle of Unity. Come in, Argentina.
Hola. From the hundreds of friends gathered at the San Martin Cultural Center, we are now joining the thousands upon thousands of Baha'is gathered all around the world as the name Baha'u'llah unites and encircles the globe with the speed of light. Present in our meeting are Baha'is from Chile, Bolivia, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, and Argentina. Our program began yesterday, and as you can imagine, everyone is delighted to be together with all of you today. Buenos Aires is the city where Mae Maxwell, at 70 years of age, laid down her life while on a teaching trip. That same year, 1940, also marked the formation of the first local spiritual assembly. Today, it is with joy in our hearts that we unite with the rest of the world in the onrushing fulfillment of Baha'u'llah's vision for mankind.
Thank you. And now let us go half around the world and receive greetings from the European continent. Bucharest, Romania, are you there? Go ahead, Romania.
At the National Theatre in Bucharest, Romania. You cannot possibly imagine the thrill of this magical moment for the Baha'is of Eastern Europe. To be deprived of outside contact for 40 years and then suddenly to see the glory of Baha'u'llah bring a new dawn to all our lands. To see hundreds of our countrymen respond to his clarion call. To rejoice in the distinction of having the first monarch, Queen Marie, champion the cause. To be chosen as one of the sites for this momentous occasion can only be living proof of the power and glory of the covenant of Baha'u'llah. In the years to come, we pledge to focus our vision, concentrate our forces, surmount every obstacle, and reach every heart throughout our lands. These endeavors we place at the feet of Baha'u'llah, hoping that they will bring one drop of joy to the heart of the blessed beauty, Allah Pa.
Thank you, Bucharest. Thank you. and now to the Earth's largest continent. Dear friends gathered in India, please share with us your greetings.
Aloha. Dearly beloved friends, it gives us boundless happiness to greet the distinguished assemblage at the World Congress in the City of the Covenant to commemorate the centenary of the inauguration of Baha'u'llah's almighty and peerless covenant through his appointment of Abdul Baha. We, at the National Hazratul Quds in New Delhi, assembled at the Indian National Congress, numbering nearly 2,000 believers, representing hundreds of ethnic groups, speaking 16 official languages, acknowledge the majesty and sovereignty of our well-beloved Lord. We send our very warm greetings and Baha'i love to all who are gathered in the Javits Convention Center in New York. Allahu Akbar.
Thank you. Thank you, India. Let us continue. Moscow, Russia, are you with us? Come in, Moscow.
Greetings from Moscow, Russia, from some 800 Baha'is, representing more than 30 nationalities. Only the covenant of the King of Light and Glory could have made such a gathering possible in a land which a few short years ago prided itself in living without God. The covenant gave strength to the pioneers in times when their faith couldn't be mentioned openly, and fueled the work of the travel teachers who have emblazoned the name of Baha'u'llah across the continent. It's the covenant that is the bedrock of the 60 local spiritual assemblies established here in the space of 3 years. We draw inspiration from contemplating the Guardian's promise that for its offer of sanctuary to Baha'u'llah, Russia will be blessed, and affirm our conviction that the power of the covenant will assist us in making Russia a mighty pillar of the faith. Ya Baha'u'llah Path.
Dear friends, let us continue our historic journey of light and go to Nairobi in Kenya. Nairobi, are you there? Go ahead, Nairobi.
Jambo from Kenya. This is Africa, the continent of light, calling our beloved sisters and brothers from around the world and in the city of the covenant. Allahu Akbar. 600 Baha'i friends speaking approximately 30 languages are gathered here in Nairobi, Kenya, celebrating this holy occasion. There are limited means prevent us from attending your joyous gathering. Yet are we transported by the rays of his resplendent face to be at one with you and to convey to you expressions of our deepest love and greetings. May the glorious blessings of this time of holiness aid and assist us all, that each one of us may become a lighted candle, each one a center of attraction, each one an emblazoner of his holy name, till at last we make this nether world the mirror image of his paradise. Ya Baha'u'llah.
Thank you, Kenya. And now, friends, let's go to the Mother Temple of Latin America. Panama, welcome to this Feast of Unity.
Allahu Akbar, beloved friends. Loving Baha'i greetings to all participants in the World Congress in New York. From the friends gathered in this satellite conference in Panama, we are in the meeting hall at the site of the Mother Temple of Latin America in Panama City. 100 Baha'is from Central and South America have joined the Panama Baha'i community in this satellite conference. We are overjoyed and thankful to Baha'u'llah at the opportunity to participate in the World Congress via satellite conference to demonstrate our commitment to the covenant and to demonstrate to the world the organic unity of the Baha'is in the world community. Allahu Akbar.
Thank you very much, Panama. Let us now go across the Pacific and go to Singapore. Singapore, are you there? Come in, Singapore.
Joyous greetings from Singapore, where over 800 Baha'is from Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Laos, Hong Kong, Macau, Philippines, Australia, Singapore, and the Holy Land are gathered to witness the unique and soul-stirring Second Baha'i World Congress. Among us are 50 Ibans, a native tribe from Sarawak, and busloads of Baha'is from plantations throughout Malaysia who have come to see for themselves the power of the cause in uniting mankind. Words fail to express our gratitude to our beloved Supreme Body for giving us the opportunity to join the thousands of his followers in New York and the world over in celebrating this momentous event in history. We wish our Baha'i brothers and sisters every success in proclaiming his name during this holy year and the years to come. Allahu Akbar.
We shall now welcome the final live location link up. Hello, Australia.
Greetings to our Baha'i brothers and sisters throughout the world. From the Darling Harbour Convention Centre in the city of Sydney, Australia, site of the Mother Temple of the Antipodes. 2,500 Baha'is are gathered from many nations of the Pacific region. That vast area of the globe, as Shoghi Effendi described it, endowed with unimaginable potentialities. At this historic moment, we remember the valiant services of the Hands of the Cause, Collis Featherston, and Mother and Father Dunn, who in 1921 opened this continent to the faith of Baha'u'llah. With our hearts and minds focused on the sacred person of Baha'u'llah, we shall, inspired by our Continental Board of Councillors and National Spiritual Assemblies for Australasia, be galvanizing our efforts to win great victories for the cause of God in the Ocean of Light teaching campaign. Allah, our friends.
Thank you, Sydney. Dear friends, as we bathe in the unity, the fellowship, and joy of this wondrous occasion, we should offer our thanksgiving, praise, and gratitude to the Almighty that the winds of change in many lands have allowed our Baha'i brothers and sisters to openly rejoice and express their faith in Baha'u'llah. Meanwhile, hundreds and thousands are still forbidden this basic freedom. In acknowledgement of their heroic steadfastness in the covenant, selfless devotion, and their continuous sacrifice. It is my privilege to read the following message from the Baha'is of Iran. The light of the covenant hath illumined all strata of society, inasmuch as it is shared from the concourse on high, and hath thus encompassed this nether world. The contingent world is astir by virtue of the breezes wafting from the garden of the covenant. The east and the west are inebriated by the wine of this divine mystery, and the nightingales of the rose garden of holiness are enchanted and have burst in songs at the sight of this flower of God's Holy Testament. With deepest joy and fervor, in these historic days, the friends in Iran greet this army of faithful lovers who in utmost serenity and purity have gathered in this magnificent historic Congress. Most certainly, the hearts and souls of the countrymen of the beloved Blessed Beauty, those of us residing in Iran, are united with you in the world of spirit and are linked to you through prayer and meditation. Even though we may appear to be far from you, the resplendent rays shining from the day star of loving kindness are manifest and evident. God willing, the darksome clouds of misunderstandings in Iran will gradually pass away. Our relationship with our fellow countrymen is improving. The presence of a number of friends from the cradle of the faith in that great Congress is a sign of this process. Our heartfelt hope is that in the future we will witness an increase of freedom in all areas. We are assured that this freedom and attainment will bring joy and pleasure to the hearts of the servants of our all-forgiving Lord. We rely on the divine bounties and are certain that the effect of the ardent prayers offered by those spiritual souls in that divine gathering will impart a new spirit to the world of humanity in this holy year. We beseech the one true God that the light of unity and oneness may shine upon this world, that disunity and war amongst the nations may be permanently eliminated, and that the present calamities of humankind in every corner of the world may be transformed into ease and comfort of all hearts and souls. To attain such a divine and worthy objective, we all raise our hands in supplication to the Almighty and humble ourselves and say, assist thou, O thou forgiving God, this gathering and grant thy bestowals, that it may illumine the world with the light of unity, and that the East and the West may be enlightened with the rays of love and harmony. O thou generous and kind Lord, resuscitate the souls through the breaths of the Holy Spirit, and brighten the faces even as radiant candles, that they may envelop the world with celestial splendors and bestow on the hearts heavenly attributes. Thou art the giver, the bestower, and the compassionate. Friends, let us respond to the Baha'is in Iran and the Baha'is gathered around the world by singing Allahu Akbar.
Baha'is have the privilege and joy of having walking among them a manifestation of God, of being able to have converse with one who is the perfect reflection of the eternal essence of God. Our immediate forebears had that privilege, and we are met to recall that agonizing moment 100 years ago when the earthly life of Baha'u'llah came to an end and the King of Kings was no longer with us on this earth. We recall his sufferings and his triumphs. We register our awareness of the task to which he has called us. And we pay tribute both to the memory of his life and the power of his spirit which continues to sustain us.
Dramatic circumstances was made to sustain the overpowering weight of so glorious a mission was none other than the one whom posterity will acclaim and whom innumerable followers already recognize as the judge, the lawgiver and redeemer of all mankind, as the organizer of the entire planet, as the unifier of the children of men, as the inaugurator of the long-awaited millennium, as the originator of a new universal cycle, as the establisher of the most great peace, as the fountain of the most great justice, as the proclaimer of the coming of age of the entire human race, as the creator of a new world order, and as the inspirer and founder of a world civilization.
Surely it's the day of God.
As the 20th century draws to a close, two historical processes are sharply converging. The first is a series of revolutionary changes which are awakening the peoples of the world to their common humanity and to the earth as a single homeland. The second is the rapid unfolding of the new pattern of human society created by Baha'u'llah's covenant, which has taken root in every corner of the globe and among all the earth's peoples. These two processes come together at a moment when a dramatic change of perception has imposed itself on the public mind. An array of unresolved problems have combined to create a crisis of planetary dimensions. Suddenly, there is no aspect of human civilization that does not find itself imperiled. Ambitious political theories which once claimed to understand the crisis have been literally swept away. The machinery of the nation-state has been everywhere overwhelmed by problems that are global in scope. Suddenly, the principle of collective action, once a pious hope, has become the lifeline of the world.
The world is our garden, and together we must cultivate it. This week at Rio, we have made a start. Beyond Rio, we must continue to carry it through. Mr. Chairman, for our generation and for future generations, there can be no other way.
It is no exaggeration to say that the greatest achievements of the 20th century are those related to collective action. These include an unprecedented decision by the community of nations to act together in suppressing aggression, international agreements to establish global environmental standards, the enlistment of the world's heads of state in protecting the rights of children, worldwide relief efforts to aid the hungry and homeless, and collective action based on the conviction that the world's seas, the Antarctic, endangered species, and the Earth's atmosphere all represent the common heritage of mankind. But even these arduous and well-meaning efforts are falling far short of the challenge.
And the lynching of black men.
Only a unifying power can harness the available technological resources of mankind. Only a truly global authority can apply them with the necessary courage and determination. Ultimately, the world's commitment to collective action will have to address the challenge enunciated almost 60 years ago by the guardian of the Baha'i faith. Every system, short of the unification of the human race, has been tried, repeatedly tried, and found wanting. As the world's leaders and populations struggle with this inescapable reality, the implications of the unfolding mission of Baha'u'llah will become steadily more apparent to everyone. At the heart of Baha'u'llah's mission lies a new covenant between God and humankind. As the peoples of the world accept the sovereignty of God, a new race of men will take up its destiny on this earth. The struggling nucleus of this new human family has already emerged, what Baha'u'llah called the people of Baha. More than just a community or an organization, the Baha'is represent the arrowhead of the evolution of human consciousness. As such, we have a profound responsibility not only to act, but to understand. O people of Baha, be not careless of the virtues with which ye have been endowed. What are these virtues with which our emerging community is endowed? The most important is unity. Unity is the next stage in the evolution of our planet, the goal of centuries of human evolution. Baha'u'llah promises, so powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. The Baha'i community is not only united, it embraces the entire variety of the human family. Without distinction, it is truly universal. And it has been imbued with a new set of moral values, a new ethos for living in an age of global integration. Baha'u'llah asks, is it within human power to effect so complete a transformation? The challenges of today call for an unprecedented act of will. The community created by Baha'u'llah has demonstrated the capacity not only to set itself enormously ambitious goals, but to persist in achieving those goals. Only a century after the inauguration of the Covenant, it has become the most widespread organized body of people on earth. And if the century and a half of sacrifices by the Iranian Baha'is demonstrates anything, it is evidence that the people of Baha possess the necessary reserves of endurance that today's challenges will require. All praise be to God, who hath adorned the world with an ornament and arrayed with a vesture which can be despoiled by no earthly power. To a world torn by conflict and increasingly desperate for solutions, the Baha'i community offers convincing evidence that humanity in all its diversity can live and work as one people in a common global homeland. But the endowments of Baha'u'llah's covenant come most sharply into focus in the operation of the administrative order. There is no achievement in human history that can compare with the system of group consultation and decision-making that the Covenant has brought into existence throughout the world. A network of local spiritual assemblies guiding and nurturing communities at the grassroots level, and the national spiritual assemblies coordinating and assisting these activities in 165 countries around the globe. And now we understand why Abdul Baha, so many years ago, said that 1963 would witness the foundation of world peace. Because in that year, on the slope of Mount Carmel, an institution came into existence that has no parallel in the history of our planet. It has been envisioned in the marvelous words of Isaiah. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and all nations shall flow unto it. For out of Zion shall go forth the law. And in the prayer of Jesus Christ, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. What the establishment of the Universal House of Justice means is that Baha'u'llah has endowed a global community, a microcosm of humanity itself, with the capacity to think and act as one soul in one body. There is no greater testimony to the power of the covenant which he inaugurated exactly 100 years ago. Blessed art thou, O earth, for thou hast been made the footstool of thy God, and been chosen as the seat of his mighty throne.
Friends, I would like to introduce to you Mrs. Zina Sorabji, who is a member of the Baha'i community of India. Mrs. Sorabji.
Friends, during the past 3 days, we have been taken on a historic journey through time, both through audiovisual means and through captivating talks, commencing with the early 19th century and its messianic expectations, witnessing the birth, the life, and teaching of Baha'u'llah, the founder prophet of the Baha'i faith, whom Baha'is consider to be the most precious being to have drawn breath upon this planet. At his passing in 1892, Baha'u'llah left for posterity a gift in the form of a covenant with his followers, the center of that covenant being Abdul Baha, his eldest son. It was to him all Baha'is were to turn in matters relating to the interpretation of Baha'u'llah's writings. We have heard in detail about the mission of Abdul Baha and the manner in which he fulfilled his dual role as exemplar for all the Baha'is and as the builder of Baha'u'llah's world order. We then benefited from an eloquent description of the guardian of the Baha'i faith, Shoghi Effendi, who through his patience and determination helped the development and progress of the Baha'i faith and its administration by inspiring the Baha'is all over the world. Today, the last day of the Congress, we shall speak about humanity's encounter with Baha'u'llah. Before introducing the subject, let me remind you once again that in about 20 minutes, we shall go live to the World Center for a history-making event. It is interesting to look at an analogy which has been very beautifully described by a renowned Baha'i scholar. He asks us to examine the principle of the conception of a new life and the growth of the embryo. We may study the condition of an egg before and after it is fertilized. Before the conception of the new life, the egg is in its normal state and contains good food. But when the new life begins to grow within it, the condition inside changes radically. The food turns bad and becomes corrupted. Yet the new life lives within this corrupted matter and feeds on it. At first, the change is not obvious, but as the new life grows, the condition inside becomes more unstable and imbalanced. And there comes a time when the egg cannot remain whole anymore. Eventually, it breaks open. The young creature is born, and the egg is reduced to a broken shell. The same principle applies to the Baha'i faith. When Baha'u'llah declared his mission in April 1863 of being that messenger of God foretold in the Holy Scriptures of the past, at that moment you could say he fertilized the egg of human society with the seed of the Baha'i community. From that moment on, the egg, that is the world, began to change. Baha'u'llah himself says, life was taken away from the whole of creation in a moment, and at that same moment, a new life was infused into all created things. And now we see that as the Baha'i community grows, conditions in the world deteriorate. There is an imbalance in the conditions existing in the world. The world's equilibrium has been upset through the vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order, said Baha'u'llah. And the old world order is being rolled up and a new one spread out in its stead. The thinking world has caught up by now with the basic teachings which Baha'u'llah enunciated over a century ago. Unconscious of their source, humankind has been incorporating these fundamentals in their programs and projects for the reshaping of society, politically, socially, and economically. a new life is in this age, stirring within all the peoples of the earth, and yet none hath discovered its cause or perceived its motive, Baha'u'llah stated over 100 years ago. Some of the issues of which he warned the rulers and leaders are the dangers of racialism, nationalism, and communism. The practice of racialism perpetrates too outrageous a violation of the dignity of human beings. What we term race is the outcome of the operation of a long historical process. It is not a divine arrangement. Today, as a result of transcultural and transracial milieu of world society, it is only natural to regard humanity as only one race. Baha'u'llah therefore urged, "The tabernacle of unity hath been raised, regard ye not one another as strangers." Unbridled nationalism, as opposed to genuine patriotism, must give way to a wider loyalty. Love of all the world's peoples does not exclude the love of one's country. Current international cooperation in various fields brings to mind Baha'u'llah's statement, "Let not a man glory in this, that he loves his country. Let him rather glory in this, that he loves his kind." The many decades of theory and practice of communism amply demonstrate that fear, suspicion, and hatred are at the basis of this ideology. Recent events clearly demonstrate that it is on the verge of total collapse. For legal standards, political and economic theories, said Shoghi Effendi, the guardian of the Baha'i faith, are solely designed to safeguard the interests of humanity as a whole, and not humanity to be crucified for the preservation of the integrity of any particular law or doctrine. Global revolution has become the dominant fact of our life. Humanity is rapidly moving towards the establishment of a new world order. The attempt in Europe to achieve an intercontinental federation of nations and the recent Gulf War are all very important indicators to the realization of the goals of collective security and general well-being of humanity propounded by Baha'u'llah. Addressing the rulers of the earth, he wrote thus in his epistle to Queen Victoria, "Take ye counsel together, and let your concern be only for that which profiteth mankind, and bettereth the condition thereof. Be reconciled among yourselves, that ye may need armaments no more, save in a measure to safeguard your territories and dominions. Be united, O concourse of the sovereigns of the world, for thereby will the tempest of discord be stilled amongst you, and your peoples find rest. Should anyone among you take up arms against one another, rise ye all against him, for this is naught but manifest justice." Yet another vital social teaching of Baha'u'llah that has had a powerful impact on present-day society is the equal opportunities for both sexes, equality for women and safeguarding of their rights, privileges, and prerogatives being directly linked to world peace. "My object," Baha'u'llah has written, "is none other than the betterment of the world and the tranquility of its peoples. The well-being of mankind, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. Today, we stand in the early stages of the greatest era of all, the age of humanity's planetization, permanent peace, and collective maturity." I would here like to share with you the examples of transformation in some of the Baha'i communities as they allow their love for Baha'u'llah and obedience to his teachings to change their thinking and conduct. Centuries-old traditions and customs steeped in prejudice and injustice are slowly giving way to a more just and fair society. As you are aware, despite government legislation against the practice of discrimination on the grounds of caste in India, there is still a very strong prevalence of the system of untouchability. For the past several years, the Baha'is have been working in remote villages in the northern part of the country, where the literacy rate may be about 48%, out of which 16% would be women. The caste prejudice is so strong that if the members of a particular village belonging to a higher caste were to pass through the streets of an adjacent village consisting of a lower caste, the lower caste villagers should pick up their benches, stop chatting, go inside their huts so that the higher caste could freely pass through without risk of touching the others. For the few years we were in touch with these Baha'is of the lower and higher caste villages, it took many back-breaking journeys to attempt to raise the sights of these villagers to Baha'u'llah's all-important principle of justice. Sometimes one despaired that a whole generation would have to pass on before the glimmerings of change in this centuries-old thinking and practice would be seen. But correspondence helped in activating one of the key believers residing in the area. He was devoted to Baha'u'llah. During this holy year, the 100th anniversary of the passing away of Baha'u'llah, another visit was made to this village. As usual, we went to the higher caste village and sat on their rope beds in the porch of their huts, along with a group of the village Baha'is. Suddenly, we saw the key believer leading a group of poorly dressed lower caste village Baha'is from the adjacent village. He introduced them as untouchables and then requested his own village people and us to make place for them on the same beds. Our eyes couldn't believe what was happening. What we had prayed for years had finally come about in this very special holy year. We were informed that the local spiritual assembly, which is the local Baha'i administrative body for the two villages, since they have one local government administration, now consisted of 8 members from the lower caste and 1 from the higher. On questioning them as to whether the Baha'i faith had in any way brought change in their lives, the answer was what we had just seen. They would never have dreamt of sitting alongside each other or, what was more important, drinking tea from the same teacups. Nor did they any longer need to hide themselves in their huts. This took place in one of the most orthodox areas of the country. A number of such instances are now being heard of in other Baha'i communities. Ever since the Universal House of Justice stressed the need to lay greater emphasis on one of the cardinal principles of Baha'u'llah, which is universal education, the Baha'is all over the world have begun to render service by starting adult literacy and other educational programs. These would assist people to independently investigate religious truth, which is another of the tenets of the Baha'i faith, instead of conforming to certain religious beliefs just because one was born in them. One such program is being held in India. I talk about India because of personal experience, but I'm sure that other Baha'i communities in the world would have similar experiences to relate. In this program, illiterate village women, both Baha'i and others, are invited to an integrated course where literacy and vocational studies are taught. The Baha'i literacy program, which goes beyond functional literacy, has been so evolved that from the first day, words are taught which are useful to the participants and which bring about a discussion on social issues. For example, the word woman, mahila in Hindi, would be directed by the trainer to lead to a very interesting session on the status of women in their society, Baha'i teachings on equal opportunity for men and women, the principle of justice, the evils of the dowry system, child marriage, female infanticide, and so on. At the end of the 3-month course, it is a delight to see women reading from prayer books, able to write letters to their relations and to Baha'i institutions, something they never imagined possible. They return to their village as change agents of their own society. They educate their menfolk on the evils of alcoholism, resulting in a decline of that addiction. The transformation is palpable inasmuch as wife beating and crime goes on the decline, and government authorities praise the Baha'i courses for taking up literacy programs with a deeper aim. There is no doubt in the minds of the Baha'is throughout the world that the guiding force behind all these endeavors to uplift humanity is that unique institution which the Baha'is know as the Universal House of Justice. What is the Universal House of Justice? This is a question which arises in the minds of people in authority, intellectuals, and in fact masses of people who now more than ever are coming in contact with the Baha'i institutions, individuals, and communities who turn to the Universal House of Justice for guidance and inspiration. They see the Baha'is treading new paths, trying to conform to high standards of integrity and upright conduct. As we witness the crumbling of what the world imagined to be unshakable ideologies and well-entrenched systems, the disintegration of law and order, the increasing suffering of human beings, both in the so-called underdeveloped and developed countries, brings to mind Baha'u'llah's ominous warning about our present-day conditions. We can well perceive, he said, how the whole human race is encompassed with incalculable afflictions. We see it languishing on its bed of sickness, sore tried and disillusioned. People can neither discover the cause of the disease, nor have they any knowledge of the remedy. They have conceived the straight to be crooked and have imagined their friend an enemy. Foreseeing these conditions, Baha'u'llah offered the remedy in the form of an administrative order. Central to this administrative order is the Universal House of Justice, which, in the words of Shoghi Effendi, would be regarded by posterity as the last refuge of a tottering civilization. Amongst the powers and prerogatives of the Universal House of Justice is the exclusive right to legislate on matters not explicitly revealed in Baha'u'llah's holy book. Shoghi Effendi says, they are to follow in a prayerful attitude the dictates and promptings of their conscience. God will verily inspire them with whatsoever he willeth, is Baha'u'llah's incontrovertible assurance. For the Baha'is residing in over 212 countries, islands, and dependencies of the world, the Universal House of Justice is the central institution to which we must turn, and on it rests the unity and progress of the cause of God in accordance with the revealed word. It is not only the highest legislative body of the faith, but is also the body to which all must turn and is the apex of the Baha'i administrative order. The Universal House of Justice is a unique global organ conceived in the mind of God's messenger for this age, Baha'u'llah, for the fashioning of that world order, the harbinger of a planetary civilization foretold and sung throughout the ages by prophets, seers, and poets. Through this supreme institution, Baha'u'llah unfolds to humanity a divinely ordained administrative machinery based upon God's justice. Baha'u'llah has not only infused his system of world order with a new spirit, but has founded a unique institution through which our consciousness can grow and develop. It shows to the peoples the way not only to the kingdom in heaven, but also to the kingdom on earth. According to its constitution, the Universal House of Justice is elected by secret ballot by the 9 members of each of the existing 165 national spiritual assemblies in the world. This election takes place once in 5 years at a meeting known as the International Baha'i Convention. It is to this dearly loved institution, which the Baha'is take comfort in, which they are assured will safeguard the unity of their faith, this refuge for humanity, that our attention is now being drawn by the satellite turning towards the Holy Land, the seat of the Universal House of Justice, and to whom we offer from this most memorable World Congress salutations of praise and gratitude.
A full century has gone by since the covenant of Baha'u'llah was established and set in motion. And we extend to the members of his community our loving greetings as they are assembled today at the World Congress in New York and at auxiliary conferences on all continents, or as they otherwise participate in the observance of this centennial occasion. We are particularly pleased that we have been afforded a special opportunity to pause for a moment together with our fellow believers, to gather our thoughts, to see how we have fared since 1892, and to consider where we are now headed. This enables us to engage in a symbolic act which by its very nature exemplifies the purpose of the covenant, a covenant intended by its divine author to unite the races and nations of the earth. Sublime emotions surge in our hearts as we survey the dramatic history and amazing progress of these 100 years. At the time of the passing of Baha'u'llah, the Baha'i community was contained within the borders of no more than 15 countries, the vast majority of its members living in his native Iran. The community now embraces the entire planet. We rejoice at the spirit of unity which is evident in its steady consolidation through the workings of the administrative order to which the covenant has given birth. Our accumulated experience has clearly demonstrated the efficacy of the covenant. The genuine unity it induces greatly encourages our expectation that all of humanity can and will be united. We have toiled to build a community at a period when the world has witnessed startling changes which have profoundly altered the character of society and plunged it into an unprecedented state of worry and confusion. Indeed, the world in its current condition has lost its bearings through the operation of forces it neither understands nor can control. It is a period in which great dynasties and empires have collapsed in rapid succession, in which powerful ideologies have captured the hearts of millions, only to expire in infamy, in which 2 world wars wreaked havoc on civilized life as it was known at the beginning of the 20th century. In the wake of such horrendous disruptions, there have been unexampled advances in the realms of science, technology, and social organization, a veritable explosion of knowledge, and an even more remarkable burgeoning in the awakening and rise of masses of humanity which were previously presumed to be dormant. These masses are claiming their rightful places within the community of nations, which has greatly expanded. With the simultaneous development of communications at the speed of light and transportation at the speed of sound, the world has contracted into a mere neighborhood in which people are instantly aware of each other's affairs and have immediate access to each other. And yet, even with such miraculous advances, with the emergence of international organizations, and with valiant attempts and brilliant successes at international cooperation, nations are at woeful odds with one another. People are convulsed by economic upheavals. Races feel more alienated than before and are filled with mistrust, humiliation, and fear. Collateral with these changes has been the breakdown of institutions, religious and political, which traditionally functioned as the guideposts for the stability of society. Even the most resilient of these seem to be losing their credibility as they have become preoccupied with their own internal disorder. This calls attention to the emptiness of the moral landscape and the feeling of futility deranging personal life. Thoughtful commentators write apprehensively about the fall of culture and the consequent disappearance of values, the loss of the fullness of the inner life, a technological civilization facing an increasingly serious crisis. They write, moreover, of the human species as being at the end with its wisdom and being unable to control itself, of the need for divine wisdom and foresight, and of the human psyche as being far removed from recognizing this need. These ominous comments reflect the universal consequences of a failed understanding as to the purpose of God for humankind. It is in this particular respect that the revelation of Baha'u'llah sheds new light. It refreshes our thoughts. It clarifies and expands our conceptions. His teachings imbue us with the abundance of God's love for his creatures. They impress upon us the indispensability of justice in human relations and emphasize the importance of adhering to principle in all matters. They inform us that human beings have been created to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization, and that the virtues which befit the dignity of every person are forbearance, mercy, compassion, and loving kindness toward all the peoples and kindreds of the earth. As the members of our community have pursued their plan for teaching his faith, they have grown to appreciate more adequately the purpose of the multifarious processes of change which have been at work during the course of the century. Such simultaneous processes of rise and fall, of integration and of disintegration, of order and chaos, with their continuous and reciprocal reactions on each other, are, our teachings tell us, but aspects of a greater plan, one and indivisible, whose source is God, whose author is Baha'u'llah, the theater of whose operations is the entire planet, and whose ultimate objectives are the unity of the human race and the peace of all mankind. Disunity is the crux of the problems which so severely afflict the planet. It permeates attitudes in all departments of life. It is at the heart of all major conflicts between nations and peoples. More serious still, disunity is common in the relations between religions and within religions, vitiating the very spiritual and moral influence which it is their primary purpose to exert. Should the lamp of religion be obscured, Baha'u'llah asserts, chaos and confusion will ensue, and the lights of fairness, of justice, of tranquility and peace cease to shine. In an elaboration of these dreadful consequences, our teachings state that when, as a result of human perversity, the light of religion is quenched in men's hearts, a deplorable decline in the fortunes of humanity immediately sets in, bringing in its wake all the evils which a wayward soul is capable of revealing. The perversion of human nature, the degradation of human conduct, the corruption and dissolution of human institutions reveal themselves under such circumstances in their worst and most revolting aspects. Human character is debased, confidence is shaken, the nerves of discipline are relaxed, the voice of human conscience is stilled, the sense of decency and shame is obscured, conceptions of duty, of solidarity, of reciprocity and loyalty are distorted, and the very feeling of peacefulness, of joy and of hope is gradually extinguished. Such, unfortunately, is the state to which institutions and individuals have come in our time. Against this background, the requirements of the covenant assume even more critical importance than before. There can be no doubt that if our community is to cope with the situation, it must rapidly advance towards the next phase in its evolution. It will be a phase in which the faith of Baha'u'llah must of necessity anticipate a deep encounter with the forces operating with such bewildering ferocity throughout the world. Let us, therefore, take this propitious occasion to review the covenantal arrangement which generates and sustains our actions. The foundation of our belief rests on our recognition of the sovereignty of God, the unknowable essence, the supreme creator, and on our submission to his will as revealed for this age by Baha'u'llah. To accept the messenger of God in his day and to abide by his bidding are the two essential, inseparable duties which each soul was created to fulfill. One exercises these twin duties by one's own choice, and by so doing performs an act which may be regarded as the highest expression of free will with which every human being is endowed by an all-loving creator. The vehicle in this resplendent age for the practical fulfillment of these duties is the covenant of Baha'u'llah. It is the instrument by which belief in him is translated into constructive deeds. The oneness of humankind is the pivotal principle and ultimate goal of his mission. This principle means far more than the reawakening of the spirit of brotherhood and goodwill among peoples. It implies an organic change in the structure of present-day society, a change such as the world has not yet experienced. The Covenant of Baha'u'llah embodies the spirit, instrumentality, and method to attain this essential goal. In addition to laying down in his Book of Laws the fundamentals for a new world order, Baha'u'llah, in the Book of his Covenant, confirmed the appointment of his son, Abdul-Baha, as the interpreter of his word and the center of his covenant. As the interpreter, Abdul-Baha became the living mouth of the book, the expounder of the word. As the center of the covenant, he became the incorruptible medium for applying the word to practical measures for the raising up of a new civilization. The covenant is therefore unique as a divine phenomenon, in that Baha'u'llah, further to conferring upon Abdul-Baha the necessary authority to fulfill the requirements of his singular office, vested in him the virtues of perfection in personal and social behavior, that humanity may have an enduring model to emulate. In no annals of the past is there recorded such an arrangement for ensuring the realization of the purpose of the manifestation of God. This covenant is the guarantee against schism. That is why those who occasionally attempt to create a cleavage in the community utterly fail in the long run. Similarly, the incessant persecution the community has been forced to endure for more than a century in the land of Baha'u'llah's birth has not succeeded in destroying its identity or undermining its organic unity. The glorious ultimate effect of this arrangement will be to ensure the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth, as promised in the holy books of old and as proclaimed by Baha'u'llah himself. The day of the promise is come, he clearly announces, and he who is the promised one loudly proclaimeth before all who are in heaven and all who are on earth, verily there is none other God but he, the help in peril, the self-subsisting. I swear by God, that which had been enshrined from eternity in the knowledge of God, the knower of the seen and unseen, is revealed. Happy is the eye that seeth, and the face that turneth towards the countenance of God, the Lord of all being. Indeed, the coming of Baha'u'llah ushered the world into a new age, making possible the beginning of a wholly new relationship between humanity and its supreme creator. The characteristics of this relationship are summed up in the covenant inaugurated upon his passing a century ago. Its spiritual dynamic and cohesive power, its unifying principles and practical institutional provisions are a pattern for the healing of the ills afflicting our fractured societies and defective social systems. The covenant of Baha'u'llah gives new meaning to humanity's checkered history. It imparts a fresh impulse to human striving. Like unto the artery, Abdul-Baha states, it beats and pulsates in the body of the world. The pervasive influence it exerts is at the heart of the derangement of human affairs. It drives the accelerating transition from the old order to the new world order envisaged by Baha'u'llah. Soon, he writes, will the present-day order be rolled up and a new one spread out in its stead. And he explains, the world's equilibrium hath been upset through the vibrating influence of this most great, this new world order. Mankind's ordered life hath been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the like of which mortal eyes have never witnessed. Let those seriously concerned about the state and fate of the world give due attention to the claims of Baha'u'llah. Let them realize that the storms battering at the foundations of society will not be stilled unless and until spiritual principles are actively engaged in the search for solutions to social problems. Let us, the followers of Baha'u'llah, redouble our effort in the exercise of our sacred duty to acquaint all humanity with the animating purpose of the worldwide law of Baha'u'llah. Let them discover that, far from aiming at the subversion of the existing foundations of society, it seeks to broaden its basis, to remold its institutions in a manner consonant with the needs of an ever-changing world. Let us, with patience and humility, respond to challenging or skeptical questions while unfolding the purposes of the law. Let them know that it can conflict with no legitimate allegiances, nor can it undermine essential loyalties. Its purpose is neither to stifle the flame of a sane and intelligent patriotism in men's hearts, nor to abolish the system of national autonomy, so essential if the evils of excessive centralization are to be avoided. Let us, by word and example, show that it does not ignore, nor does it attempt to suppress, the diversity of ethnical origins, of climate, of history, of language and tradition, of thought and habit that differentiate the peoples and nations of the world. Finally, let them appreciate that it calls for a wider loyalty, for a larger aspiration than any that has animated the human race, that it insists upon the subordination of national impulses and interests to the imperative claims of a unified world, that it repudiates excessive centralization on the one hand and disclaims all attempts at uniformity on the other, that its watchword is unity in diversity. Its watchword is unity in diversity. It is especially noteworthy that, coincidental with this Baha'i Holy Year, are the commemorations of other world-shaking occurrences which, centuries ago, commenced processes destined to attain their glorious consummation in the promised day of God. The ultimate resolution of the profound issues to which they gave rise and which have ripened with the passage of time is discernible in the eventual realization of the world-embracing system of Baha'u'llah. Our thoughts turn to the history of Abdu'l-Baha's epic journey to the West, and particularly to North America, where in New York he disclosed to his Western disciples the implications of the covenant of Baha'u'llah. It was, in a sense, an act of renewal, prospective of the consolidation of the union of the old and new worlds into one global entity. Surnamed by him City of the Covenant, New York resonates with the effects of that experience of 80 years ago. Then it was still the major entryway to the land of promise for millions of people seeking new horizons. Now it is recognized as a gathering place for the leaders of nations, an international venue for efforts at achieving unity in the political realm. Its very atmosphere vibrates with the hopes of a world seeking to set its affairs in order. Today, the hearts of the Baha'is throughout the earth are focused on this City of the Covenant, wherein many thousands of their fellow believers from all parts of the planet have assembled in the Second Baha'i World Congress. The presence there of such a widely varied representation of the human race is an affirmation of the unific power of the covenant, which the event was convened to celebrate. In this season of beginnings and of the commemorations of beginnings, we Baha'is set for ourselves a new measure of effort, one more daring and persistent than before. May our words proclaim and our deeds demonstrate that there is only one God, only one religion, only one race. And few though we be, may we thus fulfill our duty towards Baha'u'llah, towards his covenant, and indeed towards all humankind.
Friends, after this momentous and wonderful statement of our beloved Universal House of Justice, I think that our hearts are very full. And I think that one of the things that the Baha'i should do when they go back to their own countries is to see that this message of the House of Justice appears in their own newsletters and in their own language as quickly as possible, because it has a very momentous message to give the Baha'is, and it will guide assemblies and National Assemblies believers on how to focus their attention, our attention, on the possible future events awaiting mankind. So I think that you should take full advantage quickly of this very important message from the Universal House of Justice. I would like to thank, on behalf of all of us here, and we're a very, very representative group of people, and a very large group of people, and I might say a very united group of people. But I, on your behalf and on my own behalf, would like to thank Mayor Dinkins of New York City for his warm reception. It's nice to come to a place where you're received with open arms. And I think that all the Baha'is are very, very appreciative that in this city of the covenant, which is so pivotal to everything that is happening at the present time all over the Baha'i world, that the mayor of this great city should greet us with genuine appreciation and affection. Fundamentally, this is a religion of happiness. If you think of Baha'u'llah's words to Professor Brown, the only Westerner who ever had the honor of being received by him, it's very, very impressive. And I think that this is another thing, another thought that we should carry out and tell other people. Say that in his only interview with a Westerner, a prominent scholar from England, the founder of the Baha'i faith, who was a prisoner and an exile, said, "I desire but the good of the world and the happiness of the nations." And I think that this is a very, very important and singularly neglected statement of Baha'u'llah. Because what does he say? He says, I desire the happiness of the nations. Doesn't say their prosperity, their welfare, their fame, that they should behave themselves, anything else. All he says is, I desire the happiness of the nations. And I think that we should carry out, as Baha'is, more of that sense of joy, of assurance, of happiness. All right, the immediate future is very dark, but we see the distant future, and it's very, very bright. And people have a right to hear from the Baha'is that we think that the most glorious future is before all mankind, that we believe in the life after death. We believe in the immortality of the soul, because many, many people may be faced in the near future with all kinds of, let's say, complicated deaths. Then we should tell them that we believe that the soul exists forever, that it is created by Almighty God, that it has its own personality and its own future, and we are convinced of it, and we're happy about it, and we're not afraid, and we pray for the dead, we love our loved ones that have passed away, and we have no fear either of death or of the future. We only have love and happiness and courage and a great, great future that the Baha'is believe in for the entire people of the world.
Bless thou, O King of Kings, the city of New York. Cause the friends there to be kind to one another. Purify their souls and make their hearts to be free and detached. Illumine the world of their consciousness. Exhilarate their spirits and bestow celestial power and confirmation upon them. Establish there a heavenly realm, so that the city of Baha may prosper, and New York may be favored with blessings from the Abha kingdom. That this region may become like the all-highest paradise, may develop into a vineyard of God, and be transformed into a heavenly orchard and a spiritual rose garden.
Javits Center in New York City, this now closes the broadcast of the concluding program of the historic Second Baha'i World Congress.